Are you thinking about getting a boat? Or are you thinking about getting a bigger boat? Well, this decision could cost you $13,992. And let me tell you, it's not what most people think. Okay, guys, so we're going to break this out into four detailed sections. That's going to be fuel consumption, slip selection, maintenance, and insurance. We're going to use a couple of averages. We're going to use it based on 100 hours running time per year. And we're going to use diesel at $5.50 a gallon, which is kind of your Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area average currently. So let's break this out. So first we're going to start with the 32-foot Bayliner, but then we're going to compare it to the 60-foot Hatteras. So 32-foot Bayliner, what we have is twin Hino diesels on there. And again, we're going to operate or base it off 100 hours a year, 500 or $5.50 a gallon. So we take that $5.50 a gallon, or actually let's take 8 gallons an hour, and we're going to times 8 gallons an hour or times 100 hours. That's going to equal 800 gallons of diesel, right? So we have 8 gallons an hour is what we're burning with the twin Hinos. Based on 100 hours of runtime per year, we're going to burn 800 gallons of diesel. We're going to take that at that $5.50 rate. So we take 800. We're going to times it by that $5.50 rate. So that $5.50 rate times 800 breaks it out to $4,400 is what you could expect to spend in fuel if you're running on average 100 hours a season or 100 hours a year. So let's put that down, 4,400. Okay, so now we're going to look at the 60-foot Hatteras. Those numbers are obviously going to be a little bit different, but again, these numbers aren't going to be necessarily what you think, because that big number, that $13,000 number I talked about earlier, again, it's not what you think it is. So fuel tends to be a pretty fixed constant, just depending on what you're doing. That consumption tends to be pretty much the same. But with the Hatteras, we're actually burning 14 gallons an hour. So let's write that down. We got 14, and now we're timesing the 14 gallons an hour times 100. So we're at 1,400 gallons a season. So we got 1,400 gallons. We're going to times that by that Bay Area average of $5.50 for the diesel. So we have our 1,400 gallons of diesel fuel based on that Bay Area average of $5.50 a gallon. So you take that 1,400 gallons times by $5.50. That's going to put you at 7,700. So let's get that number on the board here. We got 7,700. So a pretty big difference, but again, not necessarily monumental and huge as you might think. So our 32-foot versus our 60-foot. We've got our two different numbers here, a total of $4,400 on the 32-foot Bayliner and a total of $7,700 on the 60-foot Hatteras. So what's that difference? That difference is $3,300. So let's get that on the board here, $3,300. We're going to circle that. Let that sink in, baby.
The 60 burns more per hour, but it also carries more. Fuel isn't just a burn rate, it represents your usable cruise range.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to slip selection. This is all going to be based on the Bay Area average, and we're going to start with the 32-foot Bayliner. 32-foot Bayliner is going to be a slightly different cost versus something that's over 40 feet where you run into additional costs. So this 32-foot Bayliner on the average is about $12 a foot for a monthly rental slip. So let's get that on the board here. We've got our 32. We're going to go ahead and times that by 12. That's $12 a foot. 32 times 12, that puts you at $384. That $384 is what you're going to spend every month putting your boat in the slip. That $384 times 12, 12 months in the year, that's going to put you at $4608. So $4,608 a year for your 32-foot bayliner. For the Hattie, baby, that's double the size. Are the costs going to be double the price? So the Hattie, like I said, since it's over 40 feet, you run into surcharges. That's going to end up being $15 a foot, whereas on the bayliner, you were at $12 a foot. So let's get these numbers on the board here. You've got 60. Now you're going to times that 60 by $15 a foot, and that is going to put you at $900 a month now. So now we're going to take that $900 a month, we're going to times that by 12, baby. And where does that put us? That puts us at $10,800. Let that sink in. Okay, so now we've got our two numbers on the board, $4,608, $4,608 a year on average to keep a 32-foot bayliner in a slip in the San Francisco Bay Area. Your 60-foot Hattie, baby, that's going to put you at $10,800. So what's the difference? The difference, $6,192.
So a couple of things you just don't want to forget about. Obviously, the fact that slip costs are reoccurring costs. The other is once you go over 40 feet, the marinas start sending you surcharges. And the other thing, once you go over that 50-foot mark, the placement and docking availability is greatly reduced.
So $6,192. Okay, so now we're going to get into maintenance. There's a lot of rules of thumbs in terms of how do you calculate maintenance per year on a boat. One of the popular rules of thumb is use 10% of the purchase price. But that could vary. It could vary on what kind of boat you got, the season that you bought it in, and so forth. So I'd be curious what you guys use for a rule of thumb for some of the folks that have been around the marina a time or two. What are you seeing in terms of maintenance costs? But right now we're going to break out, again, the 32 versus the 60, and we're going to put this out as annual maintenance costs. So again, annual costs here. And with the 32-foot bayliner, it's going to come in at, with the bayliner, it breaks out to about $2,500 a year. With the 60-foot Hatteras, that's going to turn into a little bit more than $7,000 a year. Now, again, this is aside from any big critical things that you might have to do. If you had to rebuild an engine or something like that, that number is obviously going to balloon significantly. And then the other thing to think about when you talk about maintenance is maintenance really scales in terms of the complexity of the systems on the boat. So you could have, say, for instance, a simple outboard boat that's going to have a lot less complexity and a lot less systems than, say, your 60-foot Hatteras that might have 4-zone air conditioning, a water maker, and all these other different things that need maintenance and so forth. So maintenance kind of scales with the complexity of the boat. But anyway, so what's this difference here? That difference there is $4,500. So let's get that number on the board. So $4,500 difference every year in the maintenance on a 30 versus a 60. Okay, so let's get into our insurance. So insurance on our 32-foot bayliner, approximately $1,500 a year. Insurance on the 60-foot Hatteras, that's going to approximately be based at $4,500 a year. And again, this is going to vary based on people's experience and things like that, especially when it comes to insurance. But what's that difference there? That difference is $3,000. So the difference in insurance per both boats, $3,000. Okay, so we got a lot of numbers here. What are the totals, guys? So let's get into the total difference. First, the difference is, well, let's actually, we're gonna take this line out now. Our first difference is $3,300. So we're gonna get this on the board, $3,300, and that's the difference in fuel. So we'll write fuel over here, $3,300. The next one is $6,192. That's a big one, baby. And you guys remember which one that was? Slip selection. So that's our boat slip. The next one is $4,500. So we'll get that on the board, $4,500. You guys remember what that was? That's maintenance. And again, this is based on your annual maintenance, just normal stuff, not rebuilding a motor and things like that. Okay, so what's our next one? Our next one is $3,000. So we got $3,000. So we've got our fuel, we've got our slip, we've got our maintenance. Now this is insurance. So what's the difference of all of these numbers? And this is going to be a big number, baby. $16,992. That's your difference.
Whoa. I know what you're thinking.
So for our earlier baseline, we had $13,992. Now we're at $16,992. And you guys know we didn't include insurance up front because, again, that can really change based on your level of experience and your age and so forth.
So a Bayliner 32, she's going to get you out.
We're officially entering the bay again. Thank God we got pounded just outside there in what they call the potato patch. We were greeted again with 15-foot swells, but they were unfortunately timed probably about 25 seconds apart. The dock for tonight is the Presidio Yacht Club just outside the Golden Gate here.
So these are big distinguishing factors. So the Bayliner is going to get you out. And we definitely took the Bayliner into the San Francisco Bay, up north to Bodega Bay, down south to Half Moon Bay. But the 60-foot Hatteras keeps you out.
Woke up, got the bed made, we're ready to rock, and we are completely underway. Make my way up the hallway here, make sure everybody else made their bed. Yep, they made their bed. Let's see where we're at. Wait a second, that looks familiar. And that's where we're at, guys. Pacific Ocean.
So an important thing to note about insurance is, you know, some people think, oh, the 60-foot boat insurance is going to be crazy versus the 30-foot boat. Insurance is actually based on replacement value. So if you pick up your 60-foot boat on a super great deal and you pick up, you know, your new Malibu wakeboard boat and that's $150,000, your insurance could actually look very similar for a 60-foot boat or for a little ski boat. So again, that cost is going to be varied based on replacement value, and that's why we didn't originally include insurance in that number.
Are you thinking about buying a boat? There's a lot to think about. There's a lot of different variables, a lot of things that can go right, but a lot of things that can go wrong. And so if you're thinking about buying a boat, or if you're thinking about buying a bigger boat,
check the link below. It's a super easy to use checklist that my wife and I put together working with the Sea Scouts and just overall trying to identify the best vessel for certain passages. Super fun and super easy to use. Check the link below.